joy is something that's really like innate, and like it's a depth of feeling as opposed to like a fleeting moment of happiness. Like joy for me is, you know, those moments of awe and wonder. And there was this intrinsic link to compassion being unlocked. So through the connection that they were having with the horses in the coaching sessions, they were able to like tap into that inner self-awareness. I was bypassing my actual emotional experience at the time, and that came back to haunt me.
Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. Faye, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's lovely to be here as well on a Friday afternoon and to finally meet you as well, because it feels like a long time coming since we started chatting.
I want to ask you a first question. I know you have committed your career to helping people unlock their potential. What was a moment or experience that made you realize that this was your calling?
I love that word calling as well, because it really summarizes how I feel about the work that I do. I feel that it's been something that I've been drawn towards as opposed to like stumbled into or like found myself in. So if I just step back a moment, my career path until this point of becoming a coach, so I became a coach professionally about a decade ago, and up until that point I'd worked as a financial advisor. And the reason that I went into that work as a financial advisor was because I felt compelled to get into a career where I could help people and guide people and support them, visualize what their lives would be like, and support them through the financial advice that I could give them. There was a bit of a backstory to getting to that point. In my 20s, I recovered from cancer. And it was, you know, quite early on in my early 20s. It was quite a profound experience to go through at a young age, and realised that I was not invincible. And I think like during my, you know, late teens and early 20s, there was definitely like this sense of invincibility and not really, I guess, paying attention to like life around me and it being really purposeful. So that did give me a bit of a wake-up call early on. But I felt like I really wanted to do something with that, which is why I pursued financial advice. I was working in the financial sector anyway, and it felt like a natural pathway for me to journey into that would also help me make some meaningful difference in people's lives. It wasn't as rose-tinted as I imagined that career would be, because with any kind of, I guess, advice role, particularly in the financial sector at the time, it was hard, it was tough. We had the global crisis during that point. There was tension. I felt, I guess, my values around wanting to help people and nourish and nurture and support conflicted with what I was feeling was pressure on, you know, sales targets, working in, you know, corporate landscape, which is quite, you know, a natural thing to have to navigate. So after about 11 years of financial advice, I decided that I'd given it a good go. I'd had some success. I'd also had some, you know, really joyful moments with connecting with people and seeing some of the things that they wanted for them and their families come into fruition. But the tension that I was feeling around this distraction, it was feeling like distraction from the work that I really wanted to do, led me into coaching. So coaching had always been part of how I went about my work as a financial advisor. And I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I really committed to my own development into something that I feel, you know, called to do, as opposed to all the financial advice like qualifications that I found myself having to do to stay in that career. So it was a bit of like a moment of, yeah, I've got a choice here. I've got a choice to pursue a path that I'm not quite sure where it's going to take me, but I'm going to start it. And yeah, I'm so glad that I did. I think I've become a little bit addicted with coaching and everything to do with learning and self-development and growth and expansion. Yeah, so for the last 10 years in particular, that's been really my focus in how can I better myself in service to other people.
Thank you so much for sharing, and happy to hear that you've overcome a very challenging struggle in your youth. It's an eye opener in many, many ways to realize that, yes, we're not invincible. I had a similar challenge, not cancer related, but I had a brain operation in 2020 and had the same realization, because often you live life as if you have infinite time in front of you. And then one day something happens and you realize, wow, it can all stop in a moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm happy you made it, and I'm happy you've also had the courage to follow your calling and pursue a very different path. So on that path, what has been some of the most surprising or transformative insights that you have gained from focusing on self-improvement and behavioral change?
So what I've discovered on the journey of becoming a coach, and I say becoming a coach because for me it's a journey that is ever lasting. I don't think you ever become like it on that pursuit of self-development. There's so many things, so many experiences, so many connections that we make that have such a profound impact on our lives, and how that shows up in how we are as people and how that then informs the work that we do. And yeah, I believe that continues for life, which is another reason why I'm quite excited about, the work that I do in particular, because it feels like it's an ongoing transformative experience. And through that, it's connected me with other parts of myself that perhaps had been maybe neglected or laid dormant for a while. So such as Reiki, Equine Facilitated Learning, connecting to nature. Yeah, every experience shapes how I see myself, how I see the world, and then how that then like shows up in how I actually coach people and support them with their transformative journeys. So I would say early on in my coach journey, it was the realization that I had spent a lot of time and energy fitting in. So maybe behaving or, well, pursuing careers even that for me kind of had that like social expectation on them, and like how exhausting that was. So I went on a bit of a journey in terms of like self-discovery and like actually like taking stock of what those things are that I really, aspire to have in my life, and also recognizing some things that no longer serve purpose in my life. I went through, a big transformation in a relationship that I was in. It set the tone for what I was then open to in new relationships. I met my now partner on one of my like coaching CPD courses. It has opened my mind to like being more creative, and not like necessarily in the sense of like sitting down and drawing, although I do enjoy art, and I've actually recently taken up art classes, but actually like seeing the creativity just around. So like going into nature, whether it's just into the garden to like listen to the birds and hear the nuances of the songs that they're singing, or like looking at the trees and noticing the different shades of green, just noticing like the creativity that is all around, and just paying more attention, I think.
And as you've been on this journey and have also helped others take a similar journey, what are some common barriers to growth that you have seen, and how do you concretely help people overcome them? Can you give us specific steps for our audience that could be interested in overcoming their own barriers to change?
So I've recently, it was last year now, but it still feels very recent, completed a master's in coaching and behaviour change. And through that work, I carried out some research for my dissertation, which allowed me to kind of encompass a few of my passions. So one being horses, one being leadership, and the third being the trait of compassion in leadership, and how relevant it is in terms of sustainable and effective leadership, which is something that not a lot of organisations pay attention to. So I would say that one of the barriers comes down to us understanding ourselves enough and having awareness to what our own needs are, and also then putting blockers in place that may or may not exist to actually honour what those things are that we need. So we often will look to support others, but not necessarily pay attention to what our own needs. So self-compassion, I would say, is definitely one of those things that is an unblock to growth, transformation, self-worth, joy, even allowing yourself to experience joy. We often, go through life with this kind of pace and fixation on goals and actions and being busy, and the environments around us often, implicitly or explicitly value that busyness through how they reward those behaviours. And just stopping and taking a breath and really paying attention to actually what do I need in this moment, and how can I allow myself to have that, as well as kind of recognising what others may need in that moment as well, and having that compassionate mindset outwards as well as inwards.
You spoke about equestrian coaching that you've integrated in what you do today. Can you tell us more about that and what you have learned while you've been working with horses?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to have my own horse, and she's like a bit of a beacon of inspiration really in my life, and definitely a place where I feel connected to myself and joy. The integration of horses into coaching, so again, that was part of my research that I did. So the topic was bridled compassion and how equine facilitated learning enhances compassion in leadership. So I was able to do a bit of research to find out what other people's experience had been from a leadership capacity through working with the horses, and what they uncovered. And there was this intrinsic link to compassion being unlocked. So through the connection that they were having with the horses in the coaching sessions, they were able to tap into that inner self-awareness. And there were kind of two elements really that came through clearly in how compassion, particularly through working with horses, related and enhanced the connection to the interrelationships and also the intra-relationships. So how people relate to themselves and how they relate to others. Yeah, so it's been a fascinating journey, and I undertook training to become an equine facilitated learner practitioner. Sorry, that was a bit of a tongue twister. Let's say equine coach. So coaching with horses. So yeah, I went through some training to give me some understanding about what it was like to be a facilitator before I conducted my research. And the experience I had through the training was so profound. I found myself in the middle of a field surrounded by horses, and I suddenly had this moment where everything felt like it was in ultra HD. Everything felt much brighter, much crisper. The sounds were much more like clear and crisp. I felt like I could hear for miles. It was just like the whisper of even the grass blades as I was like walking through the field, and also noticing I could hear but something in the distance that was making like a humming noise that I became aware of. And then the smells, so the smells of the horses, the smells that were being captured on the breeze, it just suddenly felt like everything had come to life. And it was due to the fact that working with the horses just had this like profound impact of bringing me into like this present state where I wasn't in my thinking head. I was really in that sensory place of being grounded and in the moment, just completely open and aware to what was happening around me. That was quite like a profound moment, because I realised how lacking that was in everyday life. So it was probably that point that kind of gave me a bit of a nudge to, come on Faye, like this is actually what life is all about. Make sure you take some time and moments to capture the essence of this and take it forward into life in general, and what might happen if you were able to help other people like transport to that place or connect with their inner being, to be able to have those kind of experiences which just in day-to-day life are or can be lacking for a lot of people.
And as individuals may be living very intense, busy lives where they may not necessarily have access to nature or a horse, what is one key thing that you would recommend that they begin doing to tap into more joy into their life?
So, like for me, joy is something that's really like innate, and like it's a depth of feeling as opposed to like a fleeting moment of happiness. Like joy for me is, those moments of awe and wonder and connecting to like the wider, something bigger than ourselves, which I do believe starts with that connection to ourselves in order to be able to connect to others and the wider system. So some of the things that I guess I practice to allow myself to have those moments of connectivity and openness. So one is my meditation practice. So I make time every day, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, to listen to a meditation or go and stand in the garden. I know for some people they may not have access to that, but somewhere outside where you can just find a bit of stillness and feel your feet on the ground and feel the breeze on your skin and connect with the wider world. Meditation practice has been something really important to me to help stay grounded and centered and present and open. Finding not even necessarily activities, but just ways of being where you can like really like connect to yourself and appreciate like the moments in life that give you those kind of like buzzy feelings. Not necessarily buzzy feelings, but those I don't know, sometimes it's cozy, sometimes it's buzzy, sometimes it's like an expansion in your chest. It might be, you know, connecting with an animal. Maybe you have a pet and just taking some time to, like, yeah, just really like connect with them. So yeah, just to share a little story, kind of bring that to life. Yesterday, so I'm actually a Reiki practitioner as well, and a friend of mine, her dog's been feeling a little bit out of sorts. He's a huge German Shepherd, but like a massive big teddy bear. And she said, "Oh, do you think you could give Marley, her dog, some Reiki?" And I said, "Well, yeah, if he wants it, then yes, he can have some Reiki." So yesterday evening, I went round and we found a little quiet place, and I connected to the Reiki energy and just kind of was like looking at Marley and a little invitation of, you know, you can come in if you want. And I had my hands on him and was going through his chakras. And then when I got to his heart area, so I had my hand on his back, one hand on his back and one hand on his heart. And it was like this moment of connection where I felt in my chest, so my heart felt like it was expanding and like bursting out of my chest. And at the same time, I visualized a big heart. It was almost like it was bursting in front of me. And I just went, "Oh, that's so cute." And at the same time, he turned his head and looked me directly in my eyes and like licked me up my face. And it just felt like it was a real sense of gratitude, and we'd had this moment of connection. And for me, that is pure joy, because that was, you know, connecting with another, but also being super aware of what was happening for me as well.
How beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And for our audience that may not necessarily be familiar with Reiki, would you be open just to share a little bit more about that, please?
I mean, I could talk for a long time about Reiki, but in its purest form, it's a traditional Japanese mode of healing, which was originally designed for people to self-heal. And the concept is that it works on universal energy. And as a practitioner, we channel that universal energy for the greater good of the person that we are working with, whether that's ourselves, whether it's Marley the dog, or whether it's another human. It's a hands-on based healing, so the energy comes through the practitioner, through the hands. Sometimes you might have hands on, sometimes you might have hands off, and yeah, the energy works through the chakras of the body. Again, I could talk a long time about those, but they are like energy. I imagine them as energy balls, and sometimes they can become blocked, whether it's through trauma or injury or our emotions, and the energy will go to where it's needed for the healing of that individual. In a nutshell. Okay. That's not textbook answer.
And wonderful. And you also touched upon chakras. Can you just also briefly describe that in a bit more details for people that may be interested to learn more about the chakras?
Yeah, there's a number of chakras that exist within the body and also, you know, outside of the body as well. And when they're in alignment, we would be feeling at our best. When they're not in alignment, then there could be all sorts going on for us. We might not necessarily be feeling at our optimum. There's different colours that represent the chakras. There's 7 main ones that we know of, but there are hundreds of them when you really look into the research. But yeah, they're fascinating to explore. So I would suggest, if anyone is interested, to have a look at that. And yeah, each one within the body also represents different emotions that could be coming up for us, or relating to different parts of our life. So, you know, relationships with parents, with ourselves. For example, the heart chakra, just in terms of what we've been talking about around compassion. Someone who is practicing self-compassion and compassion to others would have, you know, an open heart chakra. the more joy that we have, we would have more of an open solar plexus chakra. And yeah, I think that's a whole other topic to explore. But just bringing that back to joy, that's been another, a fascinating link into my own personal journey, as I explored Reiki after I recovered from cancer originally. I had a little kind of break from it for a while, and have, in the last several years or so, reconnected to that part of my life. And again, it's like another way that I tap into my joy, because it's something bigger than me. It's something beyond the physical. It's that ability to connect into, the life force and energy beyond what we can see. And that's something quite, mysterious and awe-inspiring about that, which personally brings me joy.
And you spoke about an open heart. And living with an open heart is, in my experience, is really about embracing uncertainty and embracing life with curiosity, despite the highs and lows that emerge. I was curious whether you could share your definition of living with an open heart and what our audience could do to actually open their minds and their hearts to new possibilities rather than living through life with a closed heart.
Yeah, and I love that curiosity, because it speaks to my inner coach. And you asked a question earlier about like how coaching had, transformed me personally, and curiosity is definitely one of those traits and characteristics that has become more to the forefront of my being and existence than perhaps it had been previously. So go wandering through life with curiosity, like wonder what's over there down that path, or I wonder as I'm actually going for walks and stuff about, what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling. Yeah, so living with an open heart, I think curiosity is like a big part of that. And, we can approach curiosity to ourselves and be curious about, the emotions that we're experiencing, and what that feels like to us. And trying to think how I want to put this. And I don't think it's always about like focusing on the positives as well. So something about the self-compassion is important here, and recognizing that we will all experience different emotions, and some of them will feel positive and some of them will feel negative. And I think a lot of my experience has been, when I've had something negative, it's been, let's focus on the positive and kind of almost dismiss the experience that I'm actually in. And I definitely did that through my journey with cancer. So there was a lot of, okay, well, at least there's treatment, let's focus on that, or it could have been worse, or, there was always something like to be positive and grateful for, which was great. But what I didn't realise at the time was I was bypassing my actual emotional experience at the time, and that came back to haunt me during life, because it was a trauma that was within me and my being that I hadn't really connected to, accepted, and allowed to then move on from it. It was something that I had squashed, hadn't acknowledged, and then it resided within me. So I think there's something important about, allowing all emotions and being curious about them, not necessarily over attaching ourselves to them, but, just accepting that as part of our human existence, there are going to be really, really rubbish things that happen that feel terrible, and that's okay that it's feeling terrible in that moment.
it's about acknowledging the negative emotions. That's what you're saying, that those are important factors that we cannot just leave on the side, that digging deep into those negative emotions can allow us actually to no longer carry the baggage, if you wish, for years to come.
Yeah, it's really just acknowledging, yeah, our human existence is, all different shades of emotions, that by, one, recognizing what we're experiencing, secondly, like allowing that experience to happen in the first place, and accepting to some extent what we're experiencing, I think also then allows us to really tap in and experience the positives as well. So yeah, I think to some extent, bypassing the experiences that are less positive can keep us in a false sense of comfort, but also mean that we're not necessarily experience the full tapestry of life that is before us.
And I love that, a tapestry of life. Yes. And loving the highs and the lows.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly been a few.
So, as a result of all those highs and lows, what is your personal definition of success, and how has it evolved over the years?
Wow. Okay. So success for me now is living in a way that honors my values and allows me to experience, all that life has to offer, to use not just my skills, but actually recognize what my place is in this world and captivate that in service to the greater good. Yeah, I think if I summarized success, it's recognizing, what my innate strengths and who I am as a person and what I'm here for, my purpose, and actually living my life in a meaningful way to fulfill that purpose. And for me, that is coaching. It's coaching. It's also beyond coaching as well. It's connection. It's compassion. It's having an impact on another and making, even if it's a small improvement to how they are in themselves. That's success for me.
And has that definition of success evolved for you over the years?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I think early career success was about, climbing the ladder, titles, financial reward, recognition, and to some extent recognition still feels quite relevant, but I think it's different now in terms of it being recognition of where I can make meaningful contribution, as opposed to recognition of, reward of doing a great job. Or I still obviously want to do a good job with what what it is that I'm doing now, but it feels more of an intrinsic success as opposed to an external reward for success.
Okay, as a final question, if you could leave one piece of advice or wisdom with everyone listening, particularly as it relates to living more joyfully,
Yeah.
what would your advice be?
Allow for moments of joy, find space and stillness, look for those moments of awe and wonder, because they're there, they are all around us, and I think we see what we focus on. If we're looking for things that are wrong or bad, we will find them. If we look for moments of awe and wonder, we will find those too. and they can both coexist at the same time. Yeah, space, stillness, curiosity, connection to yourself and connection to others. Foster some self-compassion as well within it all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Faye. It's been such a pleasure to have you with us. And thank you for sharing your journey and all your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely to be here and to meet you as well.